Goodbye fields and hello grocery aisles. The potatoes have finally made it to the store, and it's your job to treat them right. So just how do you make a potato feel comfortable? Well, you're about to find out. It's 8 a.m. and another shipment of potatoes has arrived by truck at Rosar Supermarket. Here to help me greet them is Eric Lehrman, the produce department manager and an expert at the storage and handling of potatoes. Good to meet you, Eric.
Welcome to Rosar's, Jared.
So what's the big deal with storage and handling? I mean, you put the potatoes on the shelves and they sell themselves, right?
Well, there's a little more to it than that. They're a lot more delicate than they look, and if we don't store and handle them correctly, it hurts the quality and no one will buy them.
Well, we can't have that.
No, we can't.
So what's our first step?
We need to get these potatoes off the dock and into storage right away.
So why the rush? Well, these potatoes are still alive. And because of that, they're extremely sensitive to 4 physical factors: temperature, light, humidity, and handling. Leaving them exposed on the dock in uncontrolled temperatures, either too hot or too cold, is a big no-no. So it's off to the storage area they go. So what makes this such a great storage room, Eric?
It's cool, dry, dark, and clean. If these potatoes are exposed to warm temperatures and light, they'll start sprouting and turn green. That's why we put them in here, away from light, under a breathable cover, at a constant room temperature, ideally between 45 and 50 degrees. If these potatoes get wet, it'll accelerate rot, so they have to be dry, and the area has to be clean to prevent diseases that can spoil the whole lot.
Well, what's the humidity in here?
About 80% of the potato is water, so it's best to keep the relative humidity in the air high, 95 to 100% if possible. Dry air will suck the moisture out of a potato, which will cause it to shrivel, and we buy them by the pound, so every ounce they lose is money out the window.
Well, how long will they keep like this?
That depends. Potatoes transferred from a storage facility will usually last up to 30 days like this. On the other hand, fresh digs, the ones fresh from the field that haven't undergone storage, will only last about 7 to 10 days. But our main goal isn't to keep them as backstock for very long. We want their time back here to be short, so they'll last longer on display and ultimately in our customers' homes.
Makes sense. So Eric, don't you think we could save a lot of space if we just push these boxes closer together?
We could, but we need to allow air to circulate between the boxes and the walls. That way the potatoes can breathe. And we want to keep the stacking of boxes to a minimum, as well as not stock pallets of potatoes on top of one another, as the excessive weight can bruise the potatoes.
Well, this is beginning to sound kind of complicated.
Not really. Just be sure to keep them in a cool, dry, dark area with good humidity and ventilation.
To keep his potatoes from degrading in storage, Eric maintains a first in, first out inventory management system. Before we put out any potatoes from today's delivery, we'll stock the tables with any potatoes remaining from previous deliveries.
Well, first of all, they get their own space.
Oh, that's very considerate.
It is. If we display them next to other fruits and vegetables like apples or onions, they can absorb those flavors. And we never put them on the wet rack or refrigerated displays.
Why not?
Wet potatoes are more prone to disease, which can affect their quality. The refrigeration will make the potatoes too cold, which can worsen bruising damage and cause internal discoloration. Potatoes that are stored too cold will convert starches to sugars, which will make them turn dark when fried. And it's also good to remind shoppers that they should not store their potatoes in the refrigerator at home as well.
All right, well, let's get this out there.
Let's get them out. So, looks like it's time to restock and rotate this table. The most important concept to remember here is to rotate the table.
What do you mean by rotate?
Being out here on display is tough for the potatoes. They're exposed to warm temperatures, warm light, so it's best to put the newer stock in behind the old stock and put the older stuff up front.
So why the front?
Shoppers tend to reach for these first, so we're trying to limit the time they're out here, so it's best to keep the new stuff in the back and the older stuff towards the front. Same goes for our bagged potatoes. This helps maintain the freshness. Rotating also gives us a chance to cull out any potatoes that have turned green or gone soft. As you can see here, these sprouts have started to grow. Sprouts mean the potato's trying to grow, and it will suck the moisture out of the potato, and they'll go soft and turn green. So a few sprouts here or there aren't too bad, but more than a few, and the potatoes have to go.
So I can just dump these out like this?
Nope, absolutely not. Potatoes bruise just like bananas, and shoppers don't like bruises. Always handle potatoes gently, and don't let them drop more than a $1 bill.
Yes, sir.
So it's always best to stack them nice and neat like this. Try not to stack them too deep. It's harder to rotate that way. It's also a good rule of thumb to not put out more than 130% of the potatoes you will sell in a day and 150% of daily volume for a sale item.
And how often per day do you rotate?
Usually 3 to 4 times a day. Best to keep them as fresh as possible.
So any unsold potatoes will just sit here overnight?
Correct. What we'll do is we'll put them in burlap once again, and this will help protect them from the light, which will help keep them from turning green and going soft on us.
Wow, those are some great tips. Thanks, Eric.
You bet, Jared.
Always remember, potatoes are sensitive to temperature, light, humidity, and handling. Never leave a new shipment of potatoes on the loading dock. Always move them quickly inside to your storage area. The ideal storage area is dry, cool, clean, and dark, with a high relative humidity. If there are lights in your storage area, make sure you cover your potatoes with a breathable material like burlap. Always leave space between your pallets, between the pallets and the walls, and never stack pallets of potatoes on top of one another. The less time potatoes spend as backstock, the longer they'll last on display and in the customer's home. Never display potatoes on the wet rack. Remember, dry potatoes are happy potatoes. Wet potatoes are more prone to disease. Rotate your stock of potatoes several times a day, moving unsold stock to the front of the table and filling in behind with new stock. Make sure you remove any potatoes that have begun to sprout, green, or shrivel. Remember, potatoes can bruise. Never drop boxes or bags of potatoes, and handle individual potatoes gently. So now you know how to store and handle potatoes properly. Next, you'll learn about the different types and varieties of potatoes.